When Invincible first arrived, it felt like a breath of fresh air. Brutal, emotional, and unapologetically just different from traditional superhero shows. It shocked audiences, built massive hype, and it quickly became one of the most talked about animated series in years. But now, a few seasons in, the conversation feels a tiny bit more complicated than that. Hello everyone and welcome back to AustinPlus commentary, where today we are talking about the show as season 4, feels weird to say, is currently upon us. It is merely a month away, and I think it is time that we start talking about where we are currently at and where we can see it going into the future with this show, because the Invincible show is so good, there's no doubt about that. However, I think it is clear that there is some things that we still don't know, and we're still trying to base it off of the comics, but we've seen that it's not all about the comics, and it's not like a rip page, put it into a TV show. So, let's talk about it, and let's see where we actually are at, and what we can expect from season 4 of the Invincible show. Invincible works so well from literally the very start, from season 1 and season 2 onwards. But season 1 of Invincible succeeded because of its balanced superhero spectacle with a genuine emotional weight. It took the familiarness of the story and it just flipped it on its head. The traditional superhero story that was absolutely just flipped, and I think that's also why The Boys works as well. The show delivers a very shocking violence alongside strong character writing as well. The slow build towards Omni-Man's reveal created one of the most memorable twists in modern TV, and the show's willingness to explore consequences made it feel more mature than a rather superhero content, because superhero content in terms of animation tends to be very much for like younger audiences. However, this is definitely for very mature audiences, and I also think that's why I think this show is so out there. It's very much like The Boys. However, even with the wording as well, it's very much like The Boys. However, it is animated, which I think is why I can tolerate that more than I can with The Boys. But there has been very long gaps in terms of each season. One of the biggest challenges that Invincible show faced was that it took very long breaks in between seasons. While animation naturally takes time, extended breaks risk cooling audiences' momentum and weakening cultural relevance. And I understand that animation, as I said, does naturally take time. However, most shows tend to get past that and just go one season every year and within a gap. But I think Invincible is just a tiny bit different. So I do think when the calling audience is down, it kind of just takes away from that relevance and its cultural impact. But hype is hard to maintain at the best of times these days. But when viewers wait years between stories development, especially in media landscapes that moves incredibly fast, it's really hard for this to compete. Now, in saying that, the popularity for Invincible is still skyrocketed for me. So I didn't watch it from season 1 onwards. I watched it from season 1 to 3 all in one. I struggled to get to the very first episode of season 1. I'll be honest, I think I watched it about 4 times. Like the intro scene 4 times until I got to the end of that episode. Right, next episode. But I think for someone like me, that I really enjoyed having that watch along for 3 seasons, but I also understand the absolute annoyance of having to wait every single a year for a different season, no matter how many episodes that is. But season 2, I definitely think, was a very good expansion, but people also argue that it's an overextension of the season 1. Strongly disagree, but anyway. But season 2 did aim to expand the universe, introduce more threats and new threats, and deepen the character arcs, particularly when Mark's struggle with responsibility and identity. And while this season was ambitious, this expansion came with some pacing issues. I completely agree with that. And some storylines felt stretched, while others moved way too quickly, creating a very uneven rhythm that definitely divided viewers. The emotional beats were still present, but the urgency wasn't exactly consistent. Season 2 was very slow. I think it went those 2 episodes that went incredibly fast, but then there was like 3 episodes that went really slowly. Season 2 was hard to get through until the very end of it, and the very end of it just went absolutely like cataclysmically amazing. And I know that's probably not the right wording, but it was amazing. And I think that waiting period of seeing the ending was worth it. But I also understand that it was an over-exaggeration of certain character scenes and introductions. But the one thing this show does that I don't think it gets enough credit for is its character development and emotional stakes. For an animated show, you would think this is a drama. At its best, Invincible remains a character-driven show. Mark's evolution, Omni-Man's complexity and morality, and the toll of violence on relationships continue to be the most compelling aspects of the show. However, as the cast grows, some characters receive limited development, making certain conflicts feel much less impactful, maintaining emotional focus that becomes harder as the scope increases, really. Now, I think Invincible is as I said, I'll probably say this so many times this video, is an amazing show. But for an animation, now, obviously, there's so many people that think animations are for kids. This isn't. It really isn't. But also, it encouraged me to read the comics because I started watching this, and I watched it while I went on holiday last year. I went on holiday, and I was still, I think, on season 3. And I don't think I've actually pointed this out on the channel that I watch Invincible. I mean, it doesn't really come as a surprise. But I thought it was anime, and now I hate anime. But it is good. But this show, you could make it into a live-action film so easily. It is incredibly easy for this show to be a movie, live-action series. Probably would take less production, but it would be so easy. And there is apparently a rumored Invincible movie in the production. But I think it is just so naturally good, and it's such natural cinema and telly that you forget that it's animated. And I think that's one of the most important aspects of it. One thing that I think put a load of people off regarding the Invincible show, and I get it, is the increasing amount of violence, and which is a defining trait for the show.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
It's animated, but also if you don't like play a game like COD, I imagine that you might not want to watch it. I understand that it is animated. You don't see much, and again, it doesn't bother me, but I can understand why it bothers other people. And I also think it works best when it serves the narrative rather than existing for just the shock value, which is where I think as The Boys lies as well. It's mainly just for the shock value and then obviously special effects. But in terms of Invincible, it works well. Early episodes used brutality to underline consequences and stakes as the series continues. And the challenge is ensuring violence remains meaningful rather than repetitive so it doesn't lose its emotional punch. Now, if we're comparing Invincible to other superhero shows, I would say that Invincible does still stand out apart from most because due to its animation style, mature themes, and willingness to basically confront moral ambiguity, it just is so up there with one of the best superhero shows out, ever. However, with more adult-oriented superhero content emerging now, its uniqueness is starting to no longer feel guaranteed. The show does still work to harder to maintain its edge, but it is struggling at the moment, mainly because a lot of people have basically hopped on that bandwagon. We all need to remember that Invincible is not its own thing. It is based off of a comic, based off the same characters, same everything, same animation as well, and we need to ensure that the faithfulness is still good to the source material. Fans of the comics largely appreciate how closely the show follows the source material to a T, and while still making smart adjustments for pacing in modern audiences, that said, the strict faithfulness also means that certain story arcs are often expected. Understandable, but it reduces the surprise for long-time fans. For me, who read the comic after, I know what happened. I think I know what's going to happen in season 4. I kind of want to see that on a big screen as well. But balancing adaptation with unpredictability is a key moving forward for this show, and I know it might be expected for some people, but it also might not be who doesn't want to read the comics. Either way, it works. And whether you watch the comics and watch the show, or watch the comics, you read the show, if you read the comics and watch the show, or you just one or the other, it's still amazing. So, after all that, where are we with the Invincible show? It is still the best superhero show around, but sustaining momentum will be its biggest challenge, and the next steps will define whether Invincible remains iconic or just simply another good show that peaked early. Now, Invincible is still a very strong series, don't get me wrong, but it is basically at a crossroads. The foundation is very solid, but the characters remain engaging, and the themes are still relevant, but pacing, release gaps, and narrative focus might determine whether it stays great or starts to decline. But I don't think Season 4 is going to rely heavily on the past success. I think it's going to have to push through a lot, because I apparently watched Season 3 of Invincible 3 months after, and it's nearly been a year since I finished it. But anyway, folks, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and comment what else you would like to see on the channel. But without further ado, hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!
Yeah.